Director. Welcome to the September 28th, 2022 meeting of the Litchfield School District Facilities Improvement Committee. I'll call the meeting to order and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Jetty with LMS project updates.
Yep, so a couple of things. So we had our project meeting today at LMS. It was our first full meeting in a couple of weeks, so we have backed off on having full meetings. We're having project review meetings in off weeks, but the full meeting with all our team there is something that we backed off on doing, frankly, to save on expense, right? So not having everybody come to the meeting. And we were able to problem solve a lot of issues today. The project continues to plug along. They'll be turning over, actually I'm gonna, since Jen is here, I'm gonna have Jen give an update on some of the things, because there were some real positives today. And I know you have daily contact with Dylan on it, but
that I do.
I just heard things today that I'm like, ooh, that's earlier than expected. Ooh,
Yes.
That's better than expected. So it was pretty exciting.
I have daily contact with the North Branch supervisor to see where we are, get status updates, and frankly, to push the envelope to make sure that we are coming in ahead of schedule and under budget, hopefully, as much as we can. So we are getting to the point right now where we're ready to complete what we're calling phase 2.1, which, or actually 2.2, which is we did the 20 rooms in the summer. There have been 3 classrooms in the library and several offices that have been offline from August to now, and we weren't supposed to get these rooms back until the end of October. They will be ready to turn them over to us for movement of people that were displaced into their home room, into their actual rooms, and we'll send our next groups on their floating journey. So we will have the 3 classrooms that currently are our fax lab, our 7th grade science class will be going back home, and our floating Spanish teacher, Mrs. Langley, who's been doing a wonderful job of floating where she is, will have a home base to go to. Taking those 3 places, those 3 classrooms, and returning them to home frees up locations to send the next 3 classrooms, which will be Mr. Momney and Tech Ed, Mr. Paiva in 8th grade science, and Mrs. Hathaway Rube, our other Spanish teacher, who will go to new locations. Mr. Paiva to fax, Mr. Momney to room 18 where Mrs. Stover was, and Mrs. Hathaway Rube floating until she has a home again. The great news that we found out at today's meeting is that it looks like we'll be getting, we were not expecting to get the library back. I don't know if anybody has heard about our pretend hallway that we have going through the library. We really needed to regain that throughway because that's one of our main access hallways. So they put up a temporary wall for us so that we could use that space. And if you saw the other side of that temporary wall, there's no way kids could be in there. But in the conversations that we've had in the last couple of days, it looks like we'll be getting that library back. We were not expecting it back until December. Wow. It looks like we'll be getting it back close to the end of October, which is much sooner than what we were expecting, which is fantastic. What does that mean? That means parents are going to, and kids are going to see a lot of change in the next couple of weeks. Our temporary hall and wall will be coming down out of the 7th grade side of the building. Our 8th grade side of the building and unified arts side of the building will become, we'll call it open concept in the hallway. You'll have that up to the metal roofing. All of the drop ceilings will be all pulled out, and they'll be starting to do some construction there. Because the duct pieces are much larger on that side of the hallway of what they have to put in, they are not going to be putting up a temporary wall. Kids will see stanchions, and there will be North Branch workers making sure that there's no work happening in the hallways when kids are in the hallways. But it's a little bit of a different logistics that we're working out, and we're working out the safety logistics, and we're working out to make sure. I mean, so far it's been fantastic in regards to the construction is moving quickly, It has been minimally disruptive. I mean, there's obviously going to be disruptive in an active construction zone, but for me to say the comparison from those that experienced the roofing project last year to this project this year, it's been light years better. So nice, and things moving along, and the construction workers are pleasant and working very hard, and doing their job at noisy jobs when kids are not in classes learning. So it's been great.
That's great. So you expect phase 2.2, which is those 3 classrooms, the library, and the offices by the end of October?
Nope, they'll be back October 11th. So October 11th is when our shuffle happens. So our 3 classes that are displaced will be put back into their homes the afternoon of the 11th, and that same afternoon, those 3 classes that are going into their new homes will be moving. We have a whole, it's like a carefully choreographed
A ballet of
ballet
construction.
of
Library is
movement.
ahead of schedule, but won't be October 11th, right?
The library will be the end of October, but it's way ahead of December when we were originally anticipating getting the library back.
What they're gonna do is stage all the stuff that's in there now that you've seen is gonna be staged into the tech ed room. And as soon as it's out, they'll finish the library, and obviously the move back into the library is a little more substantial than a classroom with all the books and so forth. So they'll make all that happen, but, by Halloween, we ought to be in there.
That's
So
fantastic.
that's really exciting. That was the surprise today. And then
He broke my story to Mrs. Provenzel. She's been having the great hallberry. Our hallberry has been wonderful, and the kids have been using it, and it's been, making lemonade out of lemons and having a location where kids are getting books and things are happening. So
I thought she knew, so I said, really exciting news about the library being opened early. And she's like, what? And I'm like,
And I
oh, you'll
looked
have to
and
talk
I
to
went,
Jen later. So, but then she said to me, I don't know if you heard this one, because I said, well, so you won't have to be at the hallberry anymore. She said, you know what? We're going to have a hallberry every day at lunch, because this is the way for kids to access books. And I'm like, I love the creative thinking, and sometimes necessity is the mother of invention. So
Correct.
if this becomes a new thing,
and
then
we were
great.
able to work her schedule a little bit differently this year, so she has more flexibility of working in with. So it's been a great adjustment, but we're working through it. I don't think I had anything else in regards to the construction project
No,
today.
I think the one big surprise was, and remember, this is the kind of thing that when North Branch is in there, if they identify deficiencies in the way the building was done, they do have to address some deficiencies. So they pointed out to us today that the main electrical conduit, which goes from, so picture where the boiler room is on the back corner, and then it goes all the way over to the new addition, the 5th grade wing. And so as it works its way through the ceiling, the code says it has to be hung every 10 feet, it has to be braced every 10 feet. And what they did is they just knocked a hole in the wall, snaked it through, and knocked a hole in the other wall, and it just sort of sags its way across all these rooms without the braces. And they said, we have no choice
Right.
but to go back in and to brace
So
it. And we're looking at it like, why would that be done? He said they just did it and got away with it.
the
It
other
shouldn't have
thing
been
that he
done.
explained, it was interesting, the last 100 feet of the line was done to code, and then all of the stuff that was hiding under the ceiling was not. But because they had to move that line to put the ductwork in, once they touch it,
They have
they
to
have to
fix it.
bring it up to code. So they have to, once, if they hadn't touched anything, it doesn't have to go to code, but in order to get the
Has to be
ductwork in,
inspected.
it had to move and it has to pass inspection.
So the problem, and the reason I raise that is, that's the type of thing that you say, of course you have to fix it. I mean, we can't have electrical wires hanging inappropriately. But on the flip side, that comes out of the contingency. So when we're looking to get the project done and have some money left over in the end, those are the kinds of things that they uncover that do gobble up into that contingency. So it leaves less for some discretionary stuff that we might want to get done. And it certainly leaves less to come back to taxpayers in the end, because you just have to get it taken care of. So it is being addressed, it will be fixed, but that's like a bummer, because, that just costs money, and it's too bad.
It's like the firewall discovery that we've discussed before. That was another surprise. once you take the ceilings out and realize there's no firewall protection between the hallway and the classrooms, and there's a rating that it has to be at.
Anything else on LMS project? I'm trying to think of.
The locker rooms are still offline. I know that's been a big question and wondering, because that was supposed to be done in 2.1. But again, North Branch being vigorously chasing the product that we asked for to be delivered. The what are they called? The floors that were poured were not poured to a high standard. There's dips and edges that don't look like a new floor. And it did not meet their expectations, so they went back to make sure that's poured correctly, and we're getting what we paid for and asked for. So those locker rooms should be done by not this weekend, but next weekend. Kids have been using them, but not, they're not polished and shined and ready yet, but they're changing in there at least. And they think they're pretty cool. Because I had to walk the boys in to make sure there was nothing unsafe in there before they went in. And I said, wait, don't change yet. And they said, this is the coolest space ever. This is awesome.
Great, thank you.
All right, so GMS land purchase, so, to give the committee an update on this, so we were able to, the board voted to approve a purchase and sales agreement on a piece of property, which is really exciting. We have asked for an appraisal to be done, so we're gonna get, an independent appraisal completed. And I feel like we can't say much more about it until we get that report back, because, I suspect that it's gonna show that we are, using taxpayer dollars or proposing to use taxpayer dollars very responsibly. But I think we have an obligation to make sure that we know that before we say much more about it, in case there were to be some sort of a glitch with it. But, if everything goes well, we should have that report mid-October, I think. That's the timeline you.
3 to 4 weeks after.
3 to 4 weeks after?
Yep.
I think last time they exceeded that, so, so let's say by the end of October, we'll have that. And then I think what we wanna do is plan, once we know exactly where we sit, we wanna plan how we want to, publicly disclose where we are and what steps remain in this, so. But
we have a signed purchase and sales.
it is signed, and, everything is in order on that front. The attorneys have everything that they need. The seller has everything that's needed, so, yeah, it's really exciting. I know timing with the financial situation couldn't be worse, but I still feel that, the location is so exciting and so perfect that, in the long run, I think the community is gonna rally behind this. And will be successful in supporting the purchase of the land on the warrant come March. And so when we go over the capital plan stuff, you'll see that, there are pieces on here relative to, the land purchase. And, you know, it's sort of like, we had so many negatives and so many setbacks on trying to figure this out, and then all of a sudden to have something, come along, it really is a very exciting development for us. So public, if you're paying attention tonight, you'll have to stay tuned while we get this sorted out, and we will have public information available within a month, so that everybody knows what we're up to. Don't think we can say anything else unless somebody else has a question or comment. All right. So really, the bulk of our time tonight is on the capital plan updates. And I guess I'm looking at this as our practice run for the presentation to the SIP committee, which I'm not even sure I know the date of when.
Third, Monday,
Monday, October 3rd.
It's this Monday.
Yep.
6:30, I think.
10:03 at 6:30. So this is our chance to finalize this then. And so, the board worked on it and gave us feedback the other night. There was a lot of feedback. We went back and incorporated a lot of credit to Michelle for plugging stuff in and making sure, but we want to make sure that this is right in everybody's mind. So, So first of all, land purchase for new elementary school. So we right now have that listed at the top of the list because sequentially, that's the thing that's next to come. And so we indicate that, you know, the feasibility study called for this, that finding a new site for a new school was the right course of action. We have put $500,000 as a placeholder into the March 23 warrant to be put in front of the voters. So we also have it listed as a high priority. Michelle, I thought we were gonna rename around the terms.
I thought we said we wanted to talk to the committee about it first and then go from there.
Can you remind us the 4 terms they have? It's
There's 4 terms when you build a capital plan that they like you to use, is desirable, which is a want instead of a need. Priority, urgent, and what was the other one? Necessary.
So we can replace those descriptors now as we go, so. And do we know the ranking of what's the highest?
Urgent is the highest, then priority, then necessary, then desirable.
Okay. So the question would be, is the land urgent? Is it priority? Is it necessary, or is it desirable?
Well, I know where I would classify it. I mean, I think the state of GMS is rapidly deteriorating, and I think that's our top priority. You know, I'd go with urgent or priority on that.
Urgent, necessary,
Urgent,
Priority.
priority,
urgent, priority.
necessary.
Necessary, desirable.
Which, it's interesting, the necessary is the 3rd level of
Yeah.
need, right? But,
Is it urgently necessary?
Right. Right.
you know, I sort of look at it that, based on what we did with the public last year, the new site, or new school somewhere else just emerged as the need. And land in southern New Hampshire is not bubbling out of the ground. We have to take advantage of opportunities that present us. And, you know, I mean, I will personally attest to investing tons of time into trying to figure this out. And so, on some level, it is urgent in my mind that we need to get this done.
I agree, because the architect can't design properly, right, without,
Well, he designed up to this point and
right,
had to
without a
stop.
place,
Right.
right, so it is urgent.
So I guess, what if we go to new GMS and then back from that? If that's a priority, then everything that leads up to that is also, you know, so if we say the new school is urgent, then everything that goes along with that
It's urgent.
is also urgent as well.
I agree
Right.
with that.
I mean, if that's,
Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, I know as the timeline goes, the land purchase has to come first. But I think it falls under that GMS umbrella. I don't know that, I mean, I guess every purchase has to be listed on the capital improvement plan.
Well,
right? So-
originally, we presented it as one combined.
Right.
A new school on a new site was one
Right.
item,
Yeah.
but from a warrant question, it sort of had to be separated off,
I
and
see.
so,
Okay.
they may be different warrants, but they're the same project, and I think they
Yes,
should get the same
normally you
designation.
wouldn't separate these out, because on the capital plan for new construction, it does have a category for land purchase. And then you would state in the capital plan that would come before the cart,
Okay.
before the horse kind of thing, so. But just for them to see it, I mean,
so let's attach it to number 2, which is GMS, new school for grades PK to 4. And in this case, we're still estimating out at a 90,000 square foot building at $325,000, or, I'm sorry, $325
Thank you.
a square foot. and basically at current, what we're recommending is that we put 125 last year into the trust fund for the new school, and that money is there. It is in the account, or will be shortly.
Could be there now. I mean, we sent the check, or we are gonna be sending the check soon, so, yep.
And then we're suggesting that we ask for another 125 this year, in the same way that we have been building that up. And I think that's all subject to change. The timing couldn't be worse for trying to figure out what to put on the warrant. Because I know the board has expressed an interest in trying to build that back up as rapidly as possible.
And
And
the
so,
rainy day fund too.
yes. And so what that fund will look like, I guess we'll have to wait and see as we get closer to the end of the year. And then in March of '24, we now have a $35 million school. And that's gone up a little bit in price. I think the last time this was here, it was less than 30. But we want to make sure that we cover all expenses. So the architect's fees and the, just everything it takes to get a building built. So it's not a $35 million school. You're talking site work, architect's fees, management fees, et cetera. The overall project will be 35 million.
But that doesn't include the price of the land purchase.
It does not. Originally, when you saw it last week, it said 35.5.
Yeah.
And we pulled the 500 out and made it
Okay.
a separate item. And I think also, they are different types of warrant articles. I mean, if you're gonna spend that kind of money, you're bonding, which
Yeah.
means you need a supermajority vote versus a land purchase is a majority vote. Building aid, I don't believe covers the land. I think it's,
No, it's just a building.
Yeah.
Brick and mortar.
so,
So it makes sense to
so
separate
we
that.
kind of broke them apart because that's not eligible for building aid. And at this point, we hadn't even factored that in when we asked for building aid, so that ship sailed.
Okay.
So, and I would say the new school, just given the state of repair and so forth, I feel is urgent. We've been, talking about a new elementary school in Litchfield for 30 years, and the board has been pursuing one for 20 years, and it just isn't getting better. So, but I think it's up to the board to decide whether this is a urgent or a priority. And then probably go back to the land purchase after it.
I think there's this is minor, but there's a little typo in, the new school, the building aid with an E on the end,
Oh, yeah.
cause it says aid. Again,
Oh,
not a major thing, but just saw it when I
building
was
helper.
there.
Fixed. Thank you.
Genius.
So are we labeling those urgent, or are we not labeling those urgent?
Yeah, I'm struggling with the definitions. I mean,
They're all kind of synonyms.
yeah, they're all the same thing to me, except for desirable. Desirable is clearly a
I think
want,
it's
right?
levels, like necessary is, we need it, but we can wait. Priority is, we really need it, we can't wait too long, and urgent is, we need it now. So,
We're working on that kind of a definition, I think.
at least,
not urgent.
that's what I was taught when I
Yeah.
took the class.
Like Starbucks coffee, they're all large.
Grande.
Venti.
Large, 20.
The next one down. In all buildings, our roof shouldn't be ending useful life, we just got it. So would that be modified? So that we're reflecting that's really, but the capital assets would be for all three buildings, but the replacement of roof?
Yeah, we did modify that. So originally it had higher amounts, in the current capital plan, but as we do the update, we're recognizing the roof at LMS has been done. If GMS is built new, that will then have a warranted roof, so we can get by, and do some cost avoidance there. The problem is 22-year-old Campbell is now showing its age. And so that's, the repairs are gonna start to mount there. So we do have to continue to put funds aside.
And the
Oh, I
other-
agree with the funds, I just wonder if the description in the notes should reflect
Not
So they,
LMS.
that we're not asking for it for LMS, for
Well,
roof, but
this-
we could be
this-
capital assets.
This particular, capital, district-wide capital repairs is your building and maintenance capital reserve fund replenishment.
So that would go for anything that fails
Anything that
unexpectedly.
fails.
Yeah.
And we can note that in there, capital reserve building, we can put that in there.
I think that would help clear it up.
Is it fair to say the amounts, obviously not for the land purchase and the GMS, but the amounts on the GMS new school and the capital repairs, the 125 and the 100 and the 125 and the 125, that's not, we haven't changed the ask. That was what we were intending to ask for despite everything that's happened within the past month. And so that is a continued ask, and we plan to continue to ask it. You know, it was in the plan.
Even
last-
after,
Yeah,
right.
okay,
We wanna add to that every year we can,
sure.
even after the building is
And
built.
generally, that has come from year-end funds.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You know, when you present, I think it's important to emphasize that because
Yeah.
I am hearing still quite, some comments about, well, we're not having a tax impact now, but we're gonna have a tax impact when they come looking to replenish the funds that they took. And so I think it would be helpful to answer that question right off the bat, which is to say, these amounts are what we planned on asking for before any of this happened. This is
sort of slowly building it back up on the same path that we've been on.
right.
And I think we do want to be clear with everybody that that's what we're asking.
Well, even if we hadn't had to withdraw those funds, we still would be adding the 120, asking for the 125.
Right, that's what I'm
right?
saying, yeah, regardless of
Right.
what's gone on in the past month, these numbers on here are still reflecting the
Right.
same ask we were asking last year and that same ask we were planning for this year.
Sure, sure.
You look at it that, so let's assume that the new GMS project gets voted on. So, you know, a new GMS is 100% under warranty,
Right.
right? And then LMS, after all the work that we've done, mechanical systems, roofing, I mean, so many features of that building are under warranty, you just can't anticipate what the need might be.
Yeah, you don't know.
It comes back to Campbell.
Yeah.
You know, Campbell, by then it'll be 25 years old. And, you know, it just is going to need things taken care of. And so at least the money will be there for when that roof needs to be done. Or, I mean, we have one compressor on the roof that took out climate control, and it's 10 grand, I think,
Yep.
for one. You know, the new pumps in the ground were $13,000. So those are the kinds of needs that are not going to go away.
Right.
So I think
Yeah.
someone might argue, reduce that from 125 to 100 or 75 or whatever, but again, with the aging flagship, you have to continue to maintain it.
And
Well,
with
not only that,
inflation.
but there are things that you can't account for, like the GMS, the electrical grid or whatever happened when that got fried and, yeah, I mean, that's just
That
Yeah.
could happen.
what happened, you know?
And the auditors will even tell you that it's fiscally responsible to build up those funds as much as you can.
Right.
So that you don't have to take it out of your budget or go to a special meeting and ask the taxpayers for more money.
So, urgent priority
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
on the first three that we've talked about? I hardly think, building up reserves is necessary or desirable. I think it's prudent, like,
It's responsible.
priority. All right. So next, we've got GMS energy efficient projects. So a couple of things about this. First of all, we hope we never have to do this because a new school will replace the need. But if we look at what we have spent replacing mechanicals at the middle school, it's very reasonable to say that if the school fails in March of '24, we would need to be asking for a couple $1 million over the next couple of years in order to, update and do something at GMS to resolve air quality, heating issues, et cetera. So we put it in. You know, again, the hope is that we gain the support of the public so that the project, the new school project gets approved, and then we're not just ooching along at these energy efficiency measures, frankly, in a building that, I don't know, LMS was a great specimen because it had solid bones, well insulated. We had to tighten up a few corners, and otherwise it was ready to go. GMS is not that school. It is not tight, it is not well insulated, and I'm not even sure $4 million comes close to what it would take to do that if we just spent $6 million on a tight building, but it's somewhere to start. I also thought, we had this conversation, if we put in 5 and 5, because we really think it's more like 10, it's a little bit bigger in terms of sprawling, and the need to insulate will be really obvious when you get in there. But then people will accuse us of, you're gaming it, you know, you're setting up a high amount later, saying if you don't approve this money, we're gonna ask you for this money. So I'm not sure the right approach to take on it, because in my mind, it's gonna be at least a $10 million renovation to get that building addressed, but.
But, I mean,
Put that
also,
out
this is just, if we're just talking about the energy efficiency, I mean, you kinda hit it on the head that we spent $6 million at LMS, and this is a much more involved project. You know, I don't know whether this includes doing something about the water table and I mean, this doesn't even address the water issues, the high water table and the humidity issues. It doesn't address the space needs. You know, we still have 6 portable classrooms out on the, you know, those are added. So if this is a $10 million project, then you have to add on, you know, if we don't get the new elementary school passed, then we have to shore up the first grade wing, we need an addition, so.
Well, if you wanna estimate more than 60, it's above 60% of the building cost
Right.
would
Do we
be
have any-
renovation, right? Total
Do we
renovation?
have any further numbers from Kyle on that?
I mean, Kyle had an estimate,
Yeah.
and I don't remember the number, but we could certainly get it and plug that in, because it exceeded the 60%, so,
That's what he said.
um,
So what's 60% of
you're
35
at
million?
18 million, I think, right? Am I
You're
doing
over
math?
18 million, yeah.
Oh, yeah, 20-something million.
I just wonder if this should say GMS repairs / energy efficiency project, because it's not just the piece of the energy efficiency, unless you wanna carve that out, but it's the understanding, and I think folks need to understand that if we do not move forward, and if they do not support a new elementary school, which people in town can make that choice, they're gonna have to make the investment in the old building to, you know, accommodate the space needs, the aging, you know, all of the different mechanical failures that are happening.
The boilers, the oil
Regularly.
tanks, I mean, the septic, all of those things will need to be
I think
addressed.
when we first built the capital plan in 2020, before we presented it to the capital improvement committee, we had that in there, but because they backed the new school,
Right.
Took it all
we
out.
took it all out.
Which I understand, and that makes sense, but I think we can't assume that that's gonna happen.
I agree with you.
and, You know, I would want a number in there, I don't want it to be an inflated number, I want it to be as close to an accurate number as we can put in there. This is what our architect, or this is what Kyle has projected to be the cost in order to renovate.
I think it's in the feasibility study.
Well,
Even
I
if it's
think
a
you're right.
separate sheet.
If you can grab that number, but we can update the worksheet. But how would you present it, as one $18 million ask, or would you do it as?
It's about 21
I don't think
million.
I don't think it's that high, cause it wasn't 60% of the project for the new, it was 60% of the
Build.
total, the appraised value of the current building. If it exceeded that.
I think we just
I
need to
wanna-
verify with
I-
Kyle
I'm
what
Not
that
sure
number
about that. I
is.
think it would be
No.
60% of the cost for the,
Of a new build.
of a new build.
That was my understanding.
Yeah, it's about
Yeah.
21 million, out of 60% of 35 million is 21 million.
Whatever it is, I would say firm it up, look in the,
Yeah.
get the definition of it, but once
But
we
I
have
think
that
it's gonna
set.
be more than that, I think it's
But
gonna
I think
be
even
closer
if
to
you had it
25.
as another, GMS school or no GMS school, have a line of going across that if we don't get this, then Plan B is,
HVAC, mechanical, classrooms being added,
Yep.
I mean,
yeah.
include all of the land, the drainage repair, I mean,
Should say 21 million plus.
plus the fuel costs. But,
So I renamed it GMS repairs and energy efficient projects, so we
Yeah.
coupled it.
Maybe even, I don't know, again, I'm just suggesting underneath it in parentheses, if 3 and 4 don't pass, something
Yeah.
that brings it right to, again, I know that we're not gonna need to repair a new building, so it makes sense to me, but we may wanna just sort of say, like, this is what we're gonna need, and these are our needs, and again, this is, to me, urgent, because it is, we need to have a safe building for the kiddos.
It kind of brings me back, and I hate to simplify it this way, but brings me back to elementary school and the Choose Your Own Adventures book. You can turn to page 6 if you want to
Yeah.
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 have to redo all the mechanicals and all these things, or you can turn to page 24 if you choose to.
right. You could even move GMS parking lot up into that too,
Yes.
right? The choose your own adventure, Route B.
So how would you prioritize it? Is it priority or urgent? I mean, I think if the new GMS fails, it's urgent, like we have to.
We have to start.
That's
with-
what
It will become urgent.
Right.
So I think it's not will become. I think those 3 become urgent.
They are.
As here's Choose Your Own Adventure page 6, and here's Choose Your Own Adventure page 24.
Right.
One of these 2 things has to happen to make that school safe and occupiable and breathable, and nobody's slipping and falling, and bills are not through the roof for what they have.
Oscar, are you able to show the matrix, just so that people following along at home can see what we see? Thank you.
Sorry, this report's 373 pages long. It's taking me some time.
That's all right.
Take your time.
But then I think you break it down, I mean, then we have to figure out what years we do what. Right, what's the first thing that we need to attack, and then the second thing, and the third thing.
Well, how many years do you wanna put a school on? If it fails the first year, do you wanna put it on the next year and push the renovation out another year?
Right.
So, we debated those things,
Yeah.
like, do you put on the warrant planner, well, we could spend 35 here or here, or do we just say, this is the time? Because
I see what you're saying.
everybody
Yeah.
else, remember, this is one tiny chapter of the town's
Whole
capital
town,
plan. And everybody kind of needs to know where everything falls with it. So, if we put the 35 in there, and just have to count on people, and if it fails, we reprioritize at that point to say, all right, are we going now for, and, the other thing is, if it's a $20 million repair tag, do we break that into subparts and do one section at a time?
Right.
But you could easily end up in a scenario where, the voters approve it one year and not another year, depending on the economy or whatever else is going on in world politics. And then you're just kicking that can down the road again, right? So it's really, it's hard to know. There's a part of me that says in March of '25, we should put on there whatever number Dan finds in the feasibility study, which I still think is north of 18 million. And not try to space it out, just to show,
Yeah,
if you do this, you avoid this.
and the cost of an addition, and, I mean,
If you can add.
Well, and it costs more if you're gonna space out these things versus,
Right.
with the LMS phases, you have to have them leave and come back and set up and leave and come back and set
Right.
up. I think doing a renovation means doing the renovation. We're making the commitment to stay in this space, in this building, then we're gonna have to put the money into it, is my thought behind it.
And.
I mean, I think CIP
Well, not-
can give their feedback on this too when you're
Right.
presenting, and they may
And
think
it will not
differently.
solve the traffic problems,
Nope.
and actually, construction will make it worse.
So,
You know,
Right.
having construction
Because
people.
no kindergartner ever would be distracted by a bulldozer.
Oh, that's not what I meant. I meant the parents
traffic
trying to get in while the
Right.
trucks are in there
Right.
and stuff.
so what he has here is repairs only, and he also mentions that repairs only don't even address everything. He has just for the repairs, it's 13.572 million. So 13,573.
I wonder
So
if that's
then
the
add-
addition of the 6 classrooms.
And energy efficient, HVAC, all
No,
that stuff
none
in
of
there.
that. So,
So
let's
add
see.
that brings you to your 18
For the repairs
million.
only the high and medium priorities are used. No energy improvements are considered to highlight the energy use differences between the options. Replacement of the temporary classrooms are included as is soon to be bonded. The repairs are then spread out over a 10-year period. So that is repairs only / replace portables is 13.573. That's the first number I've come across. I'm only on page 53 of 373.
Well,
so.
and you haven't added a
The parking lot or
20
the,
22 inflationary adjustment.
Right.
Because when Kyle did that,
Well, and then also he shows that then you add, because you haven't done the energy efficiency, then you have utilities, human resources, property and finance. The total bill ends up being 38 million.
38.
Yeah, that's a life cycle cost over 10. This was to show that
Right.
just adding. So it was meant to show that like a new building would be 35 million, but to just do repairs over the life of the bond, you're end up paying 38 million.
Okay.
Let me see if I can get other numbers. Page 54.
so to keep us moving ahead,
Yeah.
we're gonna get a number that we can tie back to the feasibility study. And we're gonna put it just in the March of 25.
Yeah.
And then the only other thing that I fear is people are gonna say, well, that number's less than 35. So I'm gonna wait for that. And of course, the answer is that doesn't have any building aid,
Right.
because the state will absolutely not give us building aid. But
I don't know if the goal of the CIP though is to necessarily influence. I don't know that the goal of this plan is to necessarily weigh one over the other.
Right.
You know, it's
Yeah.
more to. I hope people aren't going to just look at the numbers and say, you know,
right, this
th-
is,
this
I
is-
agree.
I mean, I think there's a reason why we're saying this is urgent and this is the top choice, and hopefully the entire committee has already agreed. It sounds like that a new school makes the most sense.
This is just strategic future planning.
Right,
That's
because
all it
if
is.
it
It's
doesn't
not,
pass.
ooh, what warrant articles are we gonna put on
Right. I
this
think
year?
we have to be smart about it, because, I mean, the reality is, this has been on warrant how many times in the past 25 years?
Right.
And hasn't passed, and so the reality is, in this town, it is a distinct possibility. I hope it's not the case, but it is a possibility, and we have to plan for it if it is.
Right.
And this is our need if it doesn't pass. That's how I look at it, but I don't know if I'm just too basic.
No, I see that. I agree with that.
So, I'm gonna delete the March of 26 number. We're gonna increase the March of 25 number. I'm gonna put it in, it sounds like Dan settled on 15 million for now, and,
Well, if
Well,
we're
but you have
looking
to
at
add
it,
energy
if we're looking
efficiency
at it
into it.
as, you know, the $35 million bond.
Yep.
To build a new, or, I mean, you just said it was a $38 million bond.
it was a,
Over
$38 million
time.
total price tag over
Okay.
20 years. The bond would only be, what did we say, 13 point?
But that doesn't include the energy efficiency stuff, or,
Right.
or the parking lot, or the water issue,
Yeah.
because you have, the state says you have to do an under drain system, so I think that 21 million is more realistic.
Would Kyle be willing to
Yeah,
put together
I
a number
can-
for that?
I'll be seeing Kyle on Friday, so
Okay.
I can ask his thoughts on it.
I think whatever number you use, as long as you can outline and make clear where you got it from,
Right.
Yeah.
then that, it just needs to be based in in some
Well,
sort
we have
of.
to make a whole worksheet on that to
Right.
back up
Yeah.
to that.
Dan may come across the spreadsheet, but Kyle has this in a spreadsheet somewhere, so,
Okay.
but we'll verify that number.
Still have 170 pages more to go.
Thanks for doing the work.
All right, there we go. I put it in green, because I'm
There
coming
you go.
back to that one.
Okay.
All right.
And is that gonna be urgent? Is that gonna be
I
classified as
put
urgent?
it as urgent.
Okay.
As urgent as a new building would be.
Okay.
All right, so next up, we have CHS Energy Efficiency Project. And so again, we can either repair piecemeal over time, systems that are failing at the high school, or we can be a little bit more comprehensive in the way that we approach it. So, unfortunately, you'll notice that it's got 770,000 in this year's warrant to address, the HVAC, the aging HVAC system at the high school. I think we probably have it in the wrong year, to be
Yeah, I
honest.
don't think it can be.
And we might,
Um,
we just
but
kinda left it there.
bumping it further out, it ran it up against an elementary school, which then ran it up against a option for repairing an aging elementary school. I didn't see a sweet spot. I don't think we identified a sweet spot, so curious your thoughts on it.
I'd say 26. March of 26.
That was where I would put it as well.
Because if you're taking out that 2 million that year and adding it into the GMS repairs, or whatever that amount would be in 25, then I think CHS would be in 26.
So I moved it out to March of '26, and, the question for you is, how do you wanna rank it? Urgent, priority, necessary, desirable?
I don't think it's urgent. I think for me, it's a question of whether it's a necessity or a priority. How bad is it right now?
Right.
Is it on the verge of failing? I mean, is it being held together by Band-Aids? Is it doing fine? I think that kind of would tell me where it needs to go.
I think the money that we spent on ESSER one to repair the, mechanicals and the control systems, they got us to a point that we're in a static place with it.
Okay.
To me, the bigger thing is gonna be a compressor fails, and these are not $200 Sam's Club units. We're
Right,
talking
yeah.
tens of
Right.
thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
10,000, so each unit has 2 compressors. I'm not sure how many units are on the roof, but 2 compressors each compressor, 10,000.
Well-
And that's just part of a unit, so obviously other things can fail from the unit, but I don't think it's definitely not urgent. I mean, we're doing decent.
Yeah.
We have 1 compressor to change out. I think they changed out 1 or 2 compressors that worked with the auditorium a year or 2 ago, so.
I would classify it
I
as
would suggest
necessary.
necessary, I was right there too, Michelle. that,
Necessary?
Yeah.
I think we need to do it, but, you know, if I heard Michelle's definitions, we need to do it, but it can wait. Unfortunately, it can wait till it fails.
And I was gonna say, it can wait till it can't.
Worries me,
Then it
but
becomes a priority.
I'm gonna ask the question again. Urgent, priority, necessary,
Desirable.
desirable. Okay. I'm just trying to wrap my head
I
around the
know.
terms.
Can we just use a 1, 2, 3, 4 scale?
I agree.
like a
It's
rubric.
just,
Yeah,
it's
wasn't
just
it?
the way they are.
all right, so next up, what did I do here? All right, so now we have LMS gymnasium floor. Jen can speak to the gym floor, but we spent some time looking at the cost of gym floors and what does it take to do. And basically, the dollar amount that's in there, the 125,000, was when we found how to estimate by square footage what it would cost. And believe it or not, a hardwood floor is less expensive in the long run than one of the roller rubber gymnasiums, because hardwood you're expected to get, it said 40 to 50 years. Guess how old the middle school is, so it's not a surprise that we're in
Yeah.
this. And the rubber floors are 30 years, so you get 10 extra years. You do pay a little bit of a premium on it, but in the long run, it saves you money.
So the couple of things that I would talk about in regards to this is, I would be asking, is this something that we could split with Parks and Rec? I'm not saying down the middle, but is it a cost that they could share with us because they use the space? Currently, the way the lines are painted, or not painted, but ingrained in the floor, to my knowledge, don't meet specifications. The 3-point line is not the correct distance from the out of bounds line. So if we have a large footed middle schooler, they're stepping out of bounds when they're going to shoot a 3. Is it supremely necessary? No, but I think we have the couple of things that we know have happened with it at this point in time. The lines are off. Additionally, we know that there have been some pest issues in our gym floor that have been treated by JP Pests. So there are termites that have come up through to the sand, as we saw when we were digging in the bathrooms in the locker room. Termites have attacked the floor in several locations. There are several locations where there are big gouges out of the floor. So it needs to be done, but in the realm of where we are right now, I would not put it as an urgent priority, but I think it needs to fall in there at some point.
I wonder about, oh, sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was wondering about safety. You know, are the newer rubber floors safer as far as impact or anything like that for students playing on them?
That's a good question.
I've fallen on both.
So no?
Neither one's comfortable.
Londonderry has rubber, Litchfield has wood. I've fallen on both,
Which
and
one
they
would you-
both hurt.
They both sound, I'm sure.
The other thing, adding the rubber floor, just to put that in there, that would add an additional expense because I'm pretty sure that our bleachers would not be able to roll over the additional floor. So then we would be talking about replacing our very old bleachers as well, which are a challenge to push in and pull out
Yeah.
as it is.
As it is.
If they're off by a millimeter, they can't come out at this point in time.
Doug, didn't you say, I don't know if it was your son, but somebody who would rather slide on the wood than the rubber?
Yeah, so sample size of one, my son said he was going to play basketball at a rubber court this past weekend. He said, I'm not diving for any balls there. So, yeah,
You get
Yeah.
burns.
So
yeah.
wood you just sort of slide on, especially if it's got a good urethane coating. And to be honest, when you put that urethane coating on, that is hard material, so you're not damaging it.
And I would tell you, over the life of the floor too, with wood, you can strip and revarnish or varnish. The rubber, in my old school, we had a rubber floor, and if you get a bubble or anything, they come and replace it, and they get, like, that color fades over time, and then you end up with these, like, off-color patches here, there, and everywhere, because they cut it out and they patch it, and it's just,
Yeah.
it's gonna be the original color
Yeah.
in a floor that's been naturally faded for how many years, and you're just like, that's what blue is supposed to be, you know?
You won't be able to have dances in there or anything either.
You have to get the tarp and stuff.
Yeah.
We have our dances. in the
Just in
cafeteria
case, I mean, you know.
but yes.
And you don't bounce on rubber floors either, believe me.
I think it'd be tough for volleyball too, honestly. But what I was gonna say is Tara, since we played musical chairs with committees, Tara sent me a CIP note, which it's not me, that's you.
Yep.
But said that there was a thought from Kate Stevens, who's on the budget committee, that the talent hall is also on its last sanding of a gym floor. And so maybe a deal could be struck with a flooring company if the school board works with the rec commission so that they could be done at the same time. And, you know, maybe it might be a little cheaper to,
Yeah.
not 2 for 1, but maybe a little bit
Economies of
cheaper
scale.
of a price. So that could be something to talk about
Yep.
on Monday, you know, depending on, I don't know where the rec commission is putting that as a priority for talent hall, but, that was a suggestion from Kate.
They've got bigger issues, I think, at Town Hall in terms of
They do.
some structural issues that they've got to address, but,
Yeah, we can certainly do that.
But if we line them up, it
good
might
note.
be worth
yeah, absolutely,
trying to plan. So
absolutely.
I'm gonna forward this note to you so that
Yes,
it's
thank
off
you.
my desk. and onto
There
yours.
are places in our current gym floor that have large gouges out of them where the termites were, you know, it will go. When? I don't know.
Yeah. So is the 125 you have on here in 27,
For the wood?
is that wood or?
That, we priced the wood floor. We
Okay,
put it in 27 because you see how the list was growing.
right.
We didn't, we ranked it medium, now we have to decide, is it, you know, to me, it's not urgent. It's necessary,
Yeah, I would put it there,
maybe a priority, I think it's more than desirable
Yeah.
when you're talking end of useful life. I felt really good when I read 40 to 50 years. I'm like, so we're in the right ballpark. It's not like it's a 30-year-old floor that we're
Right.
trying to replace early. So,
Okay. So that, we said necessary?
I suggested it, but
I think,
Yeah, I
I
agree
agree
with
with
that.
is
that.
that necessary?
I finally found the spreadsheet, and it just breaks it out, but that number still lands on 13,572,968. But what he's spelling out in this number doesn't cover the entirety of that, of what's described in the CIP plan. So I think you may still want to consult with him to say, I think this is probably, I'll say 60% of that, and then we're just gonna fill in the rest of the 40% to get an actual number. But you're starting at, we'll say 13,600.
All right. So I'm gonna, just so that 13.6 M.
And that basically, it looks like it really just gets the portables into the building. So it's not hitting the energy efficiency and any of those other upgrades for the rest of the building.
Thank you for that, Dan. That's helpful.
Do we
And
need
if
to
you ever
put-
want to, I finally found it on page 366 of 373 in the feasibility study.
You should have started at the end.
Should have started at the end.
Is it an appendice?
Always start at the appendices.
Do we need to put notes in for the LMS gym floor?
Yeah, if you want to, I left it blank because I wasn't sure what everybody wanted in there, so.
We want to take,
Can, you have editing privilege?
I don't know, I can try.
Try to type in there and see if it lets you. Looks like it's letting you. All right, if I may, LMS fields. So here we've priced out a 600 by 350 foot athletic field, irrigation, parking for events. Basically, what it will build is in the front yard of LMS, sort of in the woods beyond the road. It will be a baseball, softball, and soccer field running diagonally through. So you'll pick up you'll pick up 2 seasons. You'll have your spring ball and your fall soccer out there. Won't help you if lacrosse were to come, because we have one field.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure you have enough land to do much more than that. You could strategically schedule baseball and lacrosse for like home games.
Clarification, is it going out by where the current field is that the kids use
It
for
would be
PE?
right out front.
By the loops?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And so we priced that out at the 345, and we put that in March of 25. Our feeling is that it's gonna be a desirable project. Some could argue that you just fold it into the bond vote for the new elementary school. I've seen school districts that have sort of put it forward as one big project. And what it does is it allows a family who no longer has students at the elementary school to say, oh, but we're getting this, and this is also necessary. So, and then you have your site work people, so going back to the economy of scale, you're here clearing land for a school, and so while you're doing that, clear the land for the field. You're selling timber, sell this timber too. You're bringing in drainage, fix this drainage. So there is some economy of trying to do it all at once, but
Additionally, I think the other reason we talked about potentially adding that to the GMS bond was because, if GMS is no longer there, then the field use
Right.
in that location isn't as easy and seamless. And we heard many reports from parents last year, which were heard loudly and clearly, that the fields at GMS are not ideal. We had some teams that refused to play on those fields because of the condition. And, you know, we want our kids to have the same opportunities as kids in other towns and districts.
That makes sense. So that would be the same, I'm assuming that would be the same, we'd like that to be at the same time as the pavement parking lot, the access road.
so we, in putting them on here, we lumped them together because
Yeah.
again, the pavement, parking lot, access road, underground piping, all that work that has to be done. if you're gonna be
Tearing it up.
clearing the woods and making a field, you sort of get all that stuff done at the same time. You have one master
Right.
plan on how it all goes. But I think an argument could be made, although it drives up the cost of the new school. You know, bring those forward a year and say, our goal is to do all of this. We really wanna finish off the middle school and get the new elementary school approved.
Right.
And so but you're adding $1 million to a big project.
Right. Yep, I see that too.
So, you know, I will tell you, when we did this at the Merrimack Valley project, it was all attached. And part of it was, it allowed high school buy-in, it allowed middle school buy-in, because, you know, people could see that, okay, you hit me for the taxes eventually anyway, so if we just bite the bullet and do it all now, it'll save some money in the long run, because it won't be escalated costs due to inflation, as we've all experienced, but it's a bigger ask, it's a huge ask.
Any thoughts?
I struggle with it because I think it gets into the wants and needs. I think it is necessary, particularly if the fields go away at GMS. And there could be some cost savings with the not needing to transport our sports teams to other fields in town, because I believe we do have buses that take groups of students over there. But it's a big ask on top of an already huge ask, and that's, I mean, there are people in town that are already gonna be struggling with increased taxes from the new school. I think it's a hard sell on top of everything else. So I see both sides of it, which is completely not helpful.
Right.
But that's my,
So when would it be if we didn't lump it in?
So you could leave them where they are, just as where we put them at this point.
Yeah.
Because, well, I think part of it, we have to label, I would suggest the fields are, well, we didn't really talk about paving yet, but notice that paving is medium-high.
Yeah.
I think paving is more of a priority,
Yeah,
because
I would agree. 'Cause
the underground piping is failing, and I think
Right.
the fields are necessary. I mean, we're probably the only middle school in southern New Hampshire that doesn't have its own fields,
Yeah,
or has a makeshift
Right.
Litchfield practice
yeah.
location.
And they don't even practice on it because
yeah.
the only team that goes out there is cross country. Soccer goes to Dara. Both softball and baseball would go down to GMS or up to Campbell, depending on when they were practicing, if it crashed into the high school team. So I don't think the fields, considering where we are financially, I don't think they're a top priority. I would definitely put the parking over the,
Yeah.
I think the access road for me, I mean, that is just such a safety issue right now. Having done open house again, and the parking of however many parents, you know.
Forget open house, just going to the cross-country meet last week.
Yeah.
We
Exactly.
asked for that once.
I almost got run over trying to protect children at the cross country. Dan was there, and I was
Not
standing.
my kid's school.
No, but I was standing across the bus loop trying
Yeah.
to prevent a car as kids were running on the trail from
Yeah.
Yeah.
driving out and across because it was the only way out, and they were their kid was done racing,
Yeah.
and that was their priority. It wasn't anybody from our school. It wasn't any. Our people are fantastic, but somebody else visiting was a little
Unaware.
miffed.
But there were cars on both sides for open house, all the way up and down that road, and there's no way a fire truck is fitting down there safely and
I-
easily if needed.
I definitely think that's a priority at least. The fields for me, I mean, I have a hard time. We do have other fields in town that the kids use. It is an expense to bus them there.
I wouldn't put it as desirable, but I think I would put it as necessary, like on the lower
Yeah.
end of the,
Load 'em, yeah,
like the way that I see the
Right.
CHS field lighting and the stadium turf, to me, those are the desirable
yeah.
things. I hate to say it, but they are.
Mhm.
You know, but
Yeah.
the,
Yeah,
that has to be a priority, and I don't know.
So I relabeled them priority and necessary.
Yeah.
I think those
Yeah, I
are
think you're right on
what
that.
I'm hearing. Now the question is, do you leave them in March of '25 or bump them back to March of '24?
I think we can leave them, I mean, this isn't, we can't change this, right?
Right.
We can still, this is just a plan, this isn't the end
Totally.
all be all, and
If
so,
it becomes necessary sooner.
yeah, I think I would leave it where it is for now. That's my thought, though.
All right, then we'll leave them in March of '25. So next up, we have GMS parking lot, and I think, okay, I've lost my cursor, there it is. Not needed if there's a new school, so I think I wanna put that over into the main
Yeah.
field where I put it up above. Whoops,
Yeah.
hang on a minute. GMS parking.
But I think that one falls into a priority, right?
Well, I guess my question would be, why wouldn't it be included in the
Repairs?
other
Renovation.
one that we had,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
like, wouldn't that
Yeah, that's what that's kind of what I did. I crossed it off down here and put it in with that
put it in with the,
repairs.
With the
Combine it
renovation and
together.
repairs.
the option B?
If not,
Yeah.
then.
Yeah. Cause I think that has to be part of it. That has to
Do
be
we work
addressed.
that into that sheet, that new sheet, and just leave it out off of, as an item by itself, we just
Yeah.
put it,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think it makes sense to separate the new school versus the repairs, but then when you get down to the nitty gritty of all the things that need to happen to make it safe and occupiable, the parking lot is a huge one in order to make sure nobody's getting run over and that it's
Yeah.
not spilling out onto Bancroft in the morning.
Yeah,
it's
and
not-
I think it, I don't know, I think it's, I don't wanna say, I don't wanna make it an honesty thing, but it's like, if it's this or this has to encompass everything that's needed.
Everything.
If not, it's gonna seem like it's a year after year, death by 1,000 paper
Yep.
cuts, you know?
GMS needs something else.
Yep.
Now it needs something
know?
else.
And
Yep.
that's why I think having that full amount and, you know, bonding
agree.
it without the building aid is the best way to go about it.
And to be honest, for the kids and teachers and parents of GMS,
Yeah.
having lived through phases, and I know I haven't been here for a long time, phases are a lot.
Yeah.
And it would be nice to just be able to say, well, look, we're under construction and this is how we're gonna be able to go through it and be done in a quicker manner than dragging it out over the course of forever.
Yep. Yeah.
So what's our ranking on it?
I don't
Urgent.
think
It
we
goes
have
under
one, we're gonna put it
urgent.
in
Comes
with the
out of that row.
renovations.
So we're gonna take it out from there.
Oh,
I think it's included in the
It's in
GMS
with the
repairs.
urgent.
got it. So just
Yeah.
bump that higher.
add that amount to whenever we settle
Yeah.
on the amount, and then
Yeah.
So
whatever
you
doesn't
cross out row 11 and you add it to row 6.
Yeah, put it underneath the other one and we'll just add them all together. We'll do a new sheet.
Got it. Add to GMS repair line. How's that?
Yeah.
All right. So now Campbell High School irrigation. So this is a new one. And we have it listed as low. We know the irrigation system is not operating totally correctly. We know that there are pipes that have failed underground. We suspect that there are leaks we don't know about. So it was weird. When the pipe failed, it bubbled up, and so we were able to see there's a problem. But it's a sand pit. It could have just as easily
Drained out.
and disappeared, and we never would have known, but it didn't.
Yeah.
So we put in $50,000 to repair the system overall, to dig pipes up, and they probably would just abandon those pipes and lay new ones, but, and we have it as a low priority. I think it's desirable,
Yeah.
probably. I will tell you, if you go by and look at the sprinkler heads going on the field, I mean, the amount of water that they're pumping
Yeah.
now is probably what it looked like back when school opened in 2000, because there's a lot of water coming out, but.
I actually wrote down necessary, but, I mean, I could get by with desirable. Necessary only because of the amount of water that we're losing with the failed system. And with water prices being what they are these days, I think that if we can button that up, we'd end up saving, you know, it would pay for itself in a year or two.
Well, I typed necessary after I said desirable, but
I think it's more than a desirable, because desirable is a want, and this falls into the need category, but on the lower end
It's a
of
low
the
need.
need category, if that makes sense. It's something that, I mean, again, we just recently had some correspondence about this, how unsafe the fields were when they were dry, you know, for students and whatnot, and for the teams practicing. So I do think there's a safety concern there, as well as a
Yeah.
wastefulness concern, but it's not enough to bump it to priority or urgent. That would be my thought.
notice that we listed that it's 50,000 from the reserve funds if, when the system fails, because we couldn't figure out where to put it, and we're like, it's sort of like you're gonna know
When
you have to
when
spend
need
it.
Yeah.
And
I
our
like that
intent
it's from
is,
reserve funds.
our intent is to say, take the money and fix it finally, so it doesn't appear in the grid, and I think that's okay,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, I think this one was more just an awareness.
Yeah.
That At some point, we're gonna have to spend money. Right now, the pumps are flying quite nicely, but that might be good for the piping underground, which is substandard, or, you know, might just hold for a while too. So an awareness that at some point, if we're finding, you know, failure after failure after failure, it doesn't make sense to do it piecemeal. It makes sense to kind of do one big chunk.
Do it, yeah.
Yep,
We'll see how the frost and thaw goes.
yeah.
So now we have stadium turf field. I'm gonna change that to desirable, cause I think we're all, I mean, I have to be honest, I love the idea of a turf field. I love the idea of field lighting. I look at this list
Yeah.
and I just feel icky that it's on the list, because I'm like, with everything we need to do, and I get that these would be awesome things to have. So I guess desirable is as low a word as we get.
I would even go so far as to take those amounts off for March of '28.
I mean, the other thing to do is just take them both off and just wait to see if a group petitions to, at all, get them on a warrant or something too. Because again, I just look at the whole list too, and looking at taxpayers in town and be like, that's a lot.
There's a
And
lot
then
of
you're adding
urgent priority
this on as
necessary
well,
things.
so
Yeah,
is this really the time to put it in? Even though it's a 6-year plan, it's still a lot in 6 years.
I
yeah, it
agree.
is.
We parked them at the end of it, like,
Right.
okay, let's see where we land, knowing that there'll be probably some speed bumps along the way to get there, but,
I'd almost, I guess I feel like it's important to leave them on there only for comparison's sake, because I think it highlights the need, it shows we're not wanting things. These are needs
Right.
these are desperate needs. If we only put forward a list of needs, I don't know that they would take it seriously.
That makes sense. They would classify
Everything's
things.
a need.
Everything's a need at this
Right,
point, right?
right.
Versus we're saying, here are some items that we're acknowledging would be nice. They're desirable. They would be well used and the students would love, but we don't see a funding, and I would take the funding off. We don't see where they're gonna fit in, if at all, into the capital plan for now, but we're putting it on the list as, because I don't want, you know, I think it's important for comparison's sake. We recognize the fact that they are different, but we're not going through this list and trying to overly state everything's a need, even though it is.
It is.
so I'm gonna move the, so the field lighting, I'm sorry, how much is it on the grid?
2.4 million.
The lighting is 390, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
So I'm just gonna put it into parentheses here.
Again, after attending
That's what I
homecoming,
agree.
it was so amazing, and I felt, especially after a rough week, such a sense of community at homecoming that night, and with the lights, and it was fun, and I really think it'd be good for town. There were a lot of GMS kids there, there was a lot of LMS kids there, so it wasn't even just high school. And I would love to see more of those events, but I just, in terms of the priority
Cost,
list,
yeah.
yeah, it's just not there.
So
Love the
the
idea.
amounts are now parked in the funding source. They're not reflected in the grid. And we'll just wait to see where it all lands. And I completely agree with you. When you go to a night homecoming game, there is a sense of community that is just incredible.
Yeah.
And I went to my first MV game since I left as principal, and it was, I mean, there were over 1,000 people there easily. And, you know, the band performs. And I think half the people are there to watch the band. They could care less about football. It was more a social event. It's just, it's incredible to watch it, so.
Yeah.
Be great to have that here.
Again, just with it being at the end of last week especially, it was very necessary
Yeah.
to kind of just feel that
Together.
It was also wicked
town
cold.
hug. It was freezing. It was really cold. But again, the little kids didn't notice. They were bebopping around like
Right.
it was nothing. There used to be a bonfire back in the day, but I think we got rid of that at some point.
Yeah, get rid of it on a frigid night. It's crazy. All right. And then just quickly, so everybody's aware, we took CHS pavement off because we've been able to do a lot of repairs over time on that. And any future repairs, our intent is to use student parking fees, which are collected to support the parking lots. So,
Yep.
we think we can stay ahead of it through strategic use of those fees. LMS Energy Efficient Project, taking that off the list because it's all been addressed. LMS renovation of kitchen, that will be addressed at some point this year or next summer, not sure.
Next summer.
Most likely next summer.
We dropped the kids off one day this week. Oh my gosh, that outside unit is humongous. That fridge is, it's a walk-in, right?
Yeah, it's beautiful though.
It is, but it's huge. I was like, wow,
But
there it
compared-
is.
What was
compared
that?
to what they,
Walk in and dance.
Yes.
but compared to what they have now,
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
I don't know how they turn around in that kitchen.
me
It's
too.
so tiny.
Darlene
so.
is a miracle worker.
Yeah, she makes
That
it all
team is
happen.
amazing.
CHS gym bleachers, we've taken those off because we've repaired them, and LMS additional classrooms. So I said to Dan DeForney, who's our PE teacher, I'm like, how do you like the new locker rooms? He goes, oh, they're really nice. And he said, and the fact that he goes, I didn't realize how much space there was in there, but seeing those two classrooms and still having a good locker room,
Yeah.
I'm like, it was the most bizarre setup.
The kids laughed and asked, who's ever gonna take a shower in there? Was the first question they asked when they went in. When I escorted them in the other day, I said, you know what? You might have to run to a homecoming, or you
Yeah.
might have to go someplace. There's 2 curtains on there, it'll be private, and you'll be okay. Used to happen all the time, but it was a humorous response but it just shows us
How-
those shower rooms that we had before.
Waste.
Now we're down to
Two.
two tiny ones. I
showers.
mean, not tiny
What
ones.
was in there before? How many showers were there? I wanna say
In the
like-
girls' shower, in the girls' locker room, I
18?
think 18 or 21.
Yeah.
I think there were 7 rows of those beautiful yellow laminate
Wow.
showers. And in the boys' shower, it was just the big community circle shower.
That's right.
It's so bizarre.
Odd.
Very strange.
Just not gonna be used now or in the future. I don't think there's gonna be a change in the way we think about, those little locker rooms, so.
No, but it could be good for if a community, like if there was power out somewhere in town
True.
and someone needed a place to shower,
Yeah.
something, there's
Yep.
an option.
Yeah, we do that at CHS as a emergency
It is.
Yeah.
place to get heat and showers and food.
And LMS does have a generator hookup, in case we had to move it down there.
Okay.
I'll be honest, when we did the renovation, again, the Merrimack Valley experience, we went to Singleton showers, like what we have here. I went a week without power during the ice storm of 2007 or whatever it was,
Oh,
eight?
yeah, 8.
2008?
Daughter was born in the middle of it.
When you live in Webster, you're the end of the line, and they get to you eventually. They look at the map and say, oh, 37 people, we'll get to them. Not a priority. But I showered every day at school. I went to work, showered,
Yeah.
went to do my job. I mean, it was like, had no option. So they do come in handy for
Oh, I think
those
that it will definitely
opportunities,
be. And there's circumstances where, middle school is rough. Kids come in and may need to take a shower because something happened at home, or they
Yep.
didn't have time, and they have that option now, which they wouldn't, definitely in a group shower would never have happened.
Never have happened. So, did we hit most of what you thought we were gonna hit? And by the way, this conversation is so helpful because, we're looking at our notes and working on things and so forth, but having more feedback on it is
I don't
helpful.
think we really changed anything from when the board discussed it at our last meeting.
No, I think we just added some more detail and
Yeah.
clarified some things. I think what we have for the priorities, what's there now is in line with what the board was saying, last week, so. I
So-
feel good about it.
What I would propose is that we send this out to the full board to say, facilities discussed it, we did some updating, we matched words to the CIP words, et cetera.
Yeah.
Take a look, and if there's something that you think is out of sync for our presentation on Monday night, let us know, and we'll
And is
adjust
that
it.
gonna be before or after you meet with Kyle on Friday to zero? I don't know number.
I'm gonna actually email Kyle, cause I think I'm gonna try to get it before Friday,
Okay.
just because.
Good report.
And then you can send it out and, yeah,
Yep.
that makes sense.
Sounds good.
Good. Good job, everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Any,
I
supposed to be
second.
at 4:30, Dan, you missed it by half an hour, but, are there any other member input things? Can we just talk about our next meeting? So, October's a tough month for me. I'm at a conference on the second Wednesday, and Doug and I are at a conference on the fourth Wednesday. So, unfortunately, NHSAA thinks Wednesday afternoon, or Wednesday is the day to have a conference, apparently, so, so we could try to find another day, like maybe meet right before a board meeting. If we need to do that, or the other option is we not meet in October, meet in October and hold off until November, so I'm curious what people's thoughts are on it. And by the way, I've not yet invited Jake to these meetings, because I'm not sure there's a lot of Campbell things to talk about, but I feel like Jen has to be here. She's up to her neck in this, and Dan is hoping to be here, so. But if we hold off, it's November 9th is the next facilities meeting, or in October, if we did the 19th, right before the board meeting. The board's gonna meet at 5:30.
Someone wants to come through the wall.
That's interesting.
Was there a person?
There's a knocking at the wall.
Yeah, it's not a mouse at all.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's been something flying around out there, cause I've been watching it.
Well, I've had a bird attacking my window recently, so.
I would say do what's best for the group. I can't do the 5th or the 19th. I have training for those two before the board meetings, so, but if Tina can be here, then I think we'll have representation from the board, so I'm not worried about it. Or, you know, if there isn't a whole lot going on besides updating on the LMS project, I think that can be done in writing,
Email, yeah.
you know, with a written report, just a quick circulate to the group.
Jen has actually, been really good at Facebook posts.
Yep. I
So-
like them all the time.
I
so.
mean, I think if we just keep that communication flow going, and then maybe we consider November 9th as the next date that we have, that we actually meet at LMS, to do a walkabout, because we haven't done one in a while, so. And by
Do we
then,
extend that to the whole board to, or
we could,
to make that option available to anybody who wants to see what's going on?
I would say board and maybe budget committee.
the challenge is, and I'm looking at Oscar, because then broadcasting from LMS, but you can record and post later if we did that, so, I mean, it just wouldn't be a live stream.
That is the weirdest week of the school year, just so everyone's aware.
Oh, there's
Week
parent
of
teacher
Halloween?
conference.
That's
and-
day in, day out, day in, day in, day out.
What week is that?
November 9th, it's a Monday,
conferences.
Oh, yeah,
it's your typical
Voting.
Monday, Wednesday, Thursday school week.
yeah.
That sounds great.
Okay. No school on election day,
Tuesday, is that?
Tuesday.
and no school on Veterans Day Friday.
Yeah.
Correct.
And parent-teacher conferences are,
Tuesday, the election day.
Yeah.
so Monday night,
Yeah,
teachers
Monday night
will,
is Tuesday, yeah.
into Tuesday parent-teacher
Also my
conferences,
birthday,
so.
And just as at that week, we're
Drink
probably
it.
gonna wanna
Sounds
change
good.
the admin team meeting, cause we're all gonna be doing some sort of Veterans Day assembly
Yes.
during that time. Who's zeroing in on times?
Got it.
Not that that's pressing, I was just looking at the week.
All right, so,
But the Wednesday would work for a tour then, if you wanted it to be a tour, cause that would be a way to ease in. And again, I'll say it again, I think budget committee maybe, let them come see what's happening. I know JD and Brian, I think.
And Steve
And Steve.
Weber, is he not on budget? What's he on? I'm
He's on
learning
he's
still.
the select board.
There you go.
Yeah, they could come anyway as part of
Yeah.
facilities, but if the rest of the budget committee wanted to also get a peek and see what the project looks like.
You know, actually tying this in the budget, because the budget meetings for the school board, they're not on the calendar yet, Michelle, we need to get those
I know.
sent
I've-
out.
I've been delaying.
But I think it's,
Not looking forward to
Denial?
She's
3
in
nights in
denial.
1 week.
Bring it.
I wanna say it's October, or November 1st, and, do you remember,
I
Doug?
can look it up.
When is, the board meeting is the 2nd, right? So it's the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd.
Yeah, so the previous week, we're rolling out the budget, and I think it would be good to tour
Yeah.
right after that, so.
Are those just the budget committee or the school board that the budget committee also attends?
The one we did in the library, right?
That's,
The
I mean, from
joint
our sake,
session?
that's, yeah,
I think they both attend.
Yeah,
Yeah.
when we both,
It's a joint session.
yeah, that's, but we're presenting to the school board for you to approve the
correct,
budget.
correct.
They just hear
But
the
the board
background.
gets to hear all the rationale, all
Yeah.
the presentations, the
Yeah.
budget committee, I mean, and they do have an opportunity to submit questions, so we had that Google Doc that really helped to keep the flow going, so. There's a lot going on those 2 weeks then.
Yeah, but then they also meet they start meeting every Thursday.
Yeah.
Straight.
I think they started,
I think they're starting that now.
Now.
'Cause
Yeah,
as
Yeah,
of
so that's
now,
what I
yeah.
mean, he had the monthly, last week was the monthly meeting, but it
and
also
then
then
the
started
next
the
3
weekly,
weeks.
yeah.
Yeah.
They're doing the town.
So the 9th at LMS could,
Correct.
would still be a go.
At 3:30?
at 3:30.
Meet in the cafeteria to start.
Yeah, I would say we have the meeting there, and then we do a walking meeting.
Oh, by then the Learning Commons may be open.
I said
Could be
Halloween.
better. Yes, you did. There's my next argument for,
It's gonna be Christmas
North
right now.
Branch.
Man, this is flying by.
all right.
Sounds good.
Excellent, thank you all.
Motion to adjourn?
Second?
Third,
All in favor, say aye.
aye.
Aye.